This is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the life, death, and personality of John DeLorean? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll start with the background of John DeLorean. I'll move to the timeline of the alleged crimes, then offer my analysis. John DeLorean was born in Detroit, Michigan on January 6, 1925. His father, Zachary, was a union organizer at the Ford Motor Company, and his mother, Catherine, worked for a division of General Electric. He had 3 younger brothers. DeLorean's father was a violent man. His behavior was described as erratic. His parents divorced in 1942. From that point on, DeLorean did not see his father very often. John DeLorean was an academically gifted student. He was actually incredibly intelligent. He had a particular interest in engineering. In 1943, he was drafted and served in the Army for 4 years. He was honorably discharged. He returned to college, as well as working for Chrysler and working at a local body shop part-time. In 1948, he graduated with a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering. He briefly sold life insurance, but became bored with that and entered a postgraduate program run by Chrysler. He earned a master's degree in automotive engineering in 1952. In 1957, he would earn an MBA. DeLorean also briefly attended law school, but that didn't go anywhere. During his studies, he started working at the Packard Motor Company and then went to work for General Motors. He was eventually promoted to the division chief engineer for Pontiac. He was well respected in the company. His most notable accomplishment at Pontiac was his work on the Pontiac GTO. DeLorean was chiefly responsible for the engineering and marketing of that vehicle. By 1965, DeLorean was the head of the entire Pontiac division. 4 years later, he was the head of the Chevrolet division. GM was exceedingly happy with his performance at this point. What made DeLorean a little unusual and started attracting some negative attention was that he had become a bit of a celebrity. He was a stylish dresser. He had plastic surgery on his chin to make it more prominent. He was thought of as a bit of a rebel. He was friends with a number of celebrities like Sammy Davis Jr. and Johnny Carson. He was getting popular at a time when business executives really didn't try to achieve any type of celebrity status. DeLorean was making a lot of money. In the late 60s, his salary plus bonus was somewhere around $600,000, about $4 million in today's dollars. He became a limited partner in the San Diego Chargers and in the New York Yankees. With Chevrolet, DeLorean did not have as much success as he did with Pontiac. He didn't like the way the top executives were running GM. He thought his ideas were better. It was predicted that John DeLorean would have been the president of GM someday. He knew this, but he did not want to wait. So he was on a track to be in a significant leadership position, but he didn't have the patience for it. He thought that his accomplishments should occur earlier. His greatness should come around sooner. He was fired from GM in 1973 after criticizing executives in the form of a speech that he leaked to the media. That same year, he started the DeLorean Motor Company with help from a few people, including an engineer named William Collins, who had worked for Pontiac. The DeLorean Motor Company produced a car that was originally called the DMC-12, but eventually was just referred to as the DeLorean. These days, it's certainly only thought of as the DeLorean. The DeLorean was a stainless steel, unpainted 2-seat sports car with a rear-mounted V6 engine supplied by Renault. The chassis was designed by Lotus. The DeLorean had a 5-speed manual transmission, although there was an optional 3-speed automatic. The automatic transmission was actually the only option available on the vehicle at all. So when one was selecting a DeLorean, it was pretty much just a DeLorean with a 5-speed or a DeLorean with an automatic. There were no other features that one could select, so no trim levels. The DeLorean only generated 130 horsepower from its 2.85-liter V6. We see these stories about the DeLorean Motor Company suggesting the car could go from 0 to 60 in 8 seconds. Perhaps their test track included a cliff, because driving a DeLorean off of a cliff is the only way it's going to reach 60 miles an hour in 8 seconds. Realistically, it could make it to 60 in about 10 or 11 seconds. Even by the standards of the 1980s, that was a fairly slow time to make it to 60 for anything referred to as a sports car. One of the reasons the DeLorean became so popular later on is because it was featured in the 1985 movie Back to the Future. In that film, it was a time machine. John DeLorean worked out a deal to build the DeLorean in a factory in Northern Ireland. The company received subsidies from the government, so DeLorean was using government money to build that factory. The car would not make it to market until January of 1981. There were serious production delays and quality issues. Even though the car was different, like it was unique, the United States was in a recession, and the high price tag of the DeLorean made it an unattractive option for buyers. In addition, it was not powerful, as I mentioned. The Chevrolet Corvette at that time had more horsepower for a lower price. Thousands of DeLoreans were left unsold. The company was $175 million in debt. People who bought the DeLorean were often unable to get it serviced. Dealers were reluctant to do the work because they weren't being paid by the DeLorean Motor Company. Now moving to the timeline of the alleged crimes. Desperate to save his company, John DeLorean became involved in a cocaine trafficking deal. A former neighbor of his named James Hoffman was an informant for the FBI. He became an informant after being caught for trafficking cocaine. Hoffman told the FBI about how DeLorean was trying to solve money problems. Hoffman suggested to the FBI that DeLorean approached him about a cocaine deal. In reality, Hoffman had approached DeLorean. The FBI came up with this idea of offering to sell John DeLorean cocaine, which he could in turn have somebody else sell on the street, and he could make millions of dollars. The problem is that DeLorean didn't have any money, so the FBI arranged to give him money in exchange for stock in his company, which of course was worthless. DeLorean didn't know that the money came from the FBI. I think the FBI was trying to live up to their new motivational slogan for agents: feeling too lazy to find any actual criminals, entrapment may be for you. The FBI charged John DeLorean in October of 1982, but because of the deceptive and unfair behavior by the informant and the FBI, DeLorean was able to successfully argue entrapment. He was found not guilty in August of 1984. DeLorean was indicted again in September of 1985 for tax evasion and defrauding investors. He was found not guilty again. In reality, John DeLorean probably was actually guilty of the fraud. It appears as though he conspired with Colin Chapman, the man who founded Lotus, to defraud investors out of about $17 million. They had created a shell company and paid that company for services that the company did not supply, namely engineering services. After the acquittals, John DeLorean came up with a few more ideas. One was for a monorail that didn't work out. It reminds me of the famous Simpsons episode with Leonard Nimoy. John DeLorean planned on bringing back a new version of the DeLorean, but that never happened either. DeLorean did sell watches for a while on the internet. He did this to raise money to fund his other ideas. In reality, John DeLorean never had any real success in business. His only true success was working for GM. As all these adventures were going on with John DeLorean's career and businesses, he had a number of romantic relationships as well. He was married 4 times. His third wife was a model named Christina Ferrar. She left him a few days after he was acquitted in the cocaine trafficking case in 1985. DeLorean's last wife was Sally Baldwin. He married her in 2002. DeLorean had 2 children, Zachary, who was adopted, and Catherine Ann, who he had with Christina Ferrar. Toward the end of his life, John DeLorean had lost pretty much everything. He had to sell his 9th-floor Manhattan duplex in 1992. He declared bankruptcy in 1999, and he had to sell his 434-acre estate in Bedminster, New Jersey in 2000. John DeLorean ended up living in a condominium in Morristown, New Jersey for the last 5 years of his life. John DeLorean would die from a stroke on March 19, 2005. He was 80 years old. Now moving to my analysis. One of the things that really stands out with John DeLorean is how driven he was. There's a 2018 movie about him titled Driven. It's actually the perfect description. There's also a 2019 movie titled Framing John DeLorean, which does, I think, a little bit of a better job capturing the reality of his life. John DeLorean was always focused on establishing a legacy. It appears as though he really believed he was destined for greatness, and he was willing to do whatever was necessary to accomplish that goal. He caused a lot of pain. He put his family through incredible stress. He cheated investors and gave false hope to workers in Northern Ireland. Even though he successfully defended himself in court, his legal problems effectively ended his career, but he did not stop trying. DeLorean never gave up. Right up until the end, he was hoping for a comeback. His belief in himself was unlimited. I think the government did entrap him in the cocaine case, but it was clear that John DeLorean was willing to break the law. I'm not sure he viewed selling cocaine or defrauding investors as wrong, rather simply as necessary for him to achieve the greatness that he deserved. Many have suggested that John DeLorean was narcissistic, which might explain how he was able to be successful for a time, but ultimately ended up isolated. He appeared to have fantasies of success, power, and the ideal love. Appearances were important to him, which could explain behaviors like the plastic surgery. He was described as charismatic, manipulative, and overconfident. Even though he may have been narcissistic, I don't think he believed he was disregarding other people's feelings. I think that DeLorean actually thought of himself as a legend who simply needed to go through the motions to fulfill his destiny. I think that he had an incredible level of ambition, which blocked out the capacity for other meaningful relationships. There's this sense that he believed that people would automatically appreciate his greatness and play along to help him achieve his goals. I think John DeLorean is a good case study on how narcissism can be both helpful and harmful at the same time, and how narcissism may express through extraordinarily intelligent individuals. DeLorean was an innovative engineer who was willing to challenge the auto industry by starting a car manufacturer from scratch. He may have been motivated by revenge to some extent, but I think what he really wanted was glory. The very characteristics that helped him to start the DeLorean Motor Company also contributed to its demise. There is always a downside to narcissism. With all this in mind, let's take a look at a potential personality profile for John DeLorean. We see that DeLorean was high in openness to experience. He was intellectually curious, non-traditional, and creative. We see he had mid-range conscientiousness. He was a hard worker, but not always cautious. He had high extroversion. He was outgoing, friendly, assertive, sensation-seeking, and talkative. We see mid-range agreeableness. He probably trusted a little too much, but he did value competition. And we see low neuroticism. He was not particularly depressed and anxious, and fear did not seem to be a key part of his decision-making. The result of John DeLorean's efforts was the DeLorean. The irony is that the car was really an analogy for DeLorean's life. The DeLorean looked fast, but was really slow. John DeLorean adjusted his outward appearances to look high performance, but ultimately could not live up to that appearance. There was a genius behind the DeLorean, but it was still a mechanical nightmare. John DeLorean was a genius, but did not follow through and make a good product. The DeLorean was made of stainless steel, which resists corrosion even when exposed to the elements. John DeLorean's behavior exposed him to many legal problems, but he was able to escape consequences. Today, the DeLorean remains an object of fascination. It is considered a collectible, a novelty. John DeLorean is thought of as fascinating, and he is a novelty in the world of executives who try to start businesses. John DeLorean succeeded in making himself a legend, but not for the reasons he had hoped. His life is a cautionary tale, one that reminds people of what is possible, but also starkly illustrates the risks of ambition. Those are my thoughts on John DeLorean. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be compelling as entrapment. Thanks for watching.